Welcome to another episode of Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary. I'm Reverend Dr. Latasha Morgan, and I have two amazing guests with me this evening, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves in just one moment. Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary, remember, is a sacred space of healing centered where God dwells. And where does God dwell? Right in the center of who we are. So we are highlighting topics that connect with who we are and what we navigate and manage every single day. And one in particular is grief. So for this evening, we'll be talking about navigating never-ending love, caregiving, and grief. Because November recognizes caregiving as the awareness highlight for the month, and we've got some exciting news about caregivers here at Alfred Street that we would like to share with you before we go this evening. So before we jump into our topic, let me introduce my guest today. This person you have seen before. She's back with us this year, Ms. Angela Liggins. Thanks for joining us again.
No problem.
Anything you want to share about yourself tonight?
No, we all know I'm Angela Liggins. I'm the Missions Programs Coordinator here at Alfred Street Baptist Church. I am also the founder of Building the Queen Within, where I focus on grief support, helping women kind of navigate through their grief.
Yeah, see, that's awesome information. We need to know that. And sitting right next to her is Minister and Dr. Frederica Sands. She is joining us tonight because this one is something close and near and dear to her heart. And then two, she's a part of the special announcement that we'll make a little later. So welcome, Dr. Sands. How are you?
I'm pleased to be here.
Good. Anything else you would like to share with us about yourself?
Not really. I'm a member of DG 30.
Shout out to DG 30.
And no, I love it when you talk about me, so continue.
Oh. Well, listen, she is amazing. She does a little of this and that around Alfred Street, and she's going to be the leader of a group that is necessary. We've been getting emails about its purpose and necessity in our church, and so you got to stay tuned to the end so you can hear a little more about that. All right, so thanks again for joining. We're going to jump right in. We're talking about grief. We're connecting grief and caregiving together as we talk about navigating this space of never-ending love. So I think we'll start with a definition of grief. And so let me read it per se, and then we'll just kind of work through it. Grief is a person's emotional response to a significant loss. And then, of course, now we can start adding in what significant loss is or begins to look like for persons. So that could be the loss of a loved one or the loss of a person, the death of a pet, right? Navigating a serious illness, so the loss of health. So the loss of something or someone, and then the emotional response that's connected with that loss. We were talking about which closing prayer, as we were considering our closing prayer. I had selected one, and Dr. Sands reminded me of a couple others that are in the book. And it's, around like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't someone that you like totally was head over heels in love with, but it's still a loss, right? And there is still grief. So we're talking about grief being the emotional response. Want to add anything to that as we think about the definition?
Of course, yes, it is absolutely the emotional response, but it is also all of that love that you have for somebody that is still trying to come out with nowhere to really go. Yeah. So it's just kind of hard to navigate. Like, where do I put this love? Who do I give it to?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, I think as Christians and as loving people, that oftentimes we attach grief to the loss of a love interest of some type, no matter what type it is. Mm-hmm. But for me, I would add anything that you have an attachment to that you are invested in.
I love that.
I like that.
Because a deep investment, it could be grief around your job, grief around a retirement of an athlete, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because and that's the thing with grief. Grief is so vast. We typically assign it to the loss of a person, and oftentimes that causes us to disconnect from other things that might be so close around us that we completely forget about, and then we're wondering, why am I feeling sad? What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? When no, it wasn't the loss or death of a person. It could have been the death of a dream, right?
Yeah.
The loss of hope. We did a special episode around the election, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we did a special episode around the election because there were large numbers of parishioners that felt one way and had intended to celebrate as a result, and then that hope vanished overnight. And there was grief there, right? That's a situation. So someone, something, some situation can all fall under the category when we consider it no longer being there as grief. Yeah. There's a quote, back to kind of piggybacking on what you said, Miss Angela, that I often share. Grief is the process that requires God and time. It's not something that you can do by yourself. You need the time so that the love, the energy, the connection, and the memory of the person or thing can find the perfect place in your heart to now reside. You need God so that the time can be tolerated. Because the time is tough, right? And together, though it seems impossible, God and time can help the process move forward, right? So give yourself some grace. You may not be where you want to be, but that's okay, because it is a process, and the process looks different for every person. Yes. All right, so now that we've kind of level set and put a definition around, for you to begin thinking like, okay, this makes sense. This is possibly a space of grief. It's something that every single human being will experience. It's a shared experience. There are some things that are just unique to our situation, our culture, our experience, our location, but grief is something every single one of us will experience along this lifetime. And so now add to that the beautiful relationship of being a caregiver, and maybe not so beautiful relationship, because depending on the situation or the illness, may not be beautiful. So in that, though, the beauty of being able to care for someone that you love, not necessarily the beauty of what they are navigating or have been diagnosed with. So now we add the two together, caregiving and grief. And so I invited these two beautiful ladies because I know their own personal stories to some degree. They both, in a capacity in their own, have been caregivers to persons that they've loved, and then now navigate a space of grief as a result of the death. So let's jump in. Let's jump in. So navigating this space. What does that look like now?
It varies. It depends on the day.
Yeah.
There are times when I'm not aware that I'm grieving. And in hindsight, I can identify it as that. There are other times like this, because we're approaching the holiday season.
Yes.
This will be, because my mother's death was on the precipice of last holiday season, we were so busy making final arrangements that that kind of got pushed to the side.
Yes.
So this is the first full year since my mother's passing.
Okay.
And it just dawned on me recently, oh, Mom's not here. There's not going to be any arrangements to accommodate her because she was ill, to accommodate Thanksgiving for her, that kind of thing. And what is Thanksgiving going to look like for me and the remaining part of our family now?
Yeah. I appreciate you being transparent and open to even having this conversation in this space. considering the time frame that you're in. And so I know that persons will be helped considerably as a result. So thank you both for being able to sit with me and share this topic. Anything you want to share now?
No, so I'm piggybacking off of what you just said, just that navigating through this holiday time. Like as for me and my story, we'll say 4 years ago, we have 4 years now, so 4 years ago, around this time, my mother was in a nursing home, and we're talking about 2020, Thanksgiving. We cannot visit her. There's nothing that we can do at this point except be on a telephone.
Yeah.
And then 2 days before Christmas, she passes away. So like she mentioned, around this time, my body now begins to start to shift and things, it's what's wrong today? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And sometimes I can recognize it, and sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to lay down for the day. And I give myself grace for that. If it's not today, it's not today. If I don't feel like doing it, I will not do it. And I'm very, I communicate that very well. I will call my boss in a heartbeat and say, sorry, I cannot do it today.
Wow.
And she has that grace with me as well, where she understands. So that's how I navigate through these holiday times, just giving myself grace and communicating my feelings and my emotions to my family and my coworkers and my leaders.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Praise God that you have an employment situation that allows you to do that.
Yes.
Because sometimes people stuff feelings because situationally they're not able to have any flexibility.
That's right.
Or to even acknowledge to other people that they're having a hard time.
I love that you brought that up as well, because oftentimes people don't realize that grief is a holistic process. And so it's not just an emotion, right, that we're trying to navigate. Like, there are physical, emotional, spiritual symptoms that we have to kind of work through to even move on from one space to the next, right? There are mental and behavioral symptoms that we have to navigate. And so not having an empathetic heart doesn't help, right, a person that is in the throes of their grief. And so I love that you brought that up. And I also love that you brought up that you are able to, like, you've gotten to a place where you are completely aware of when you're not well. Because part of what we do, right, we just keep pushing and keep going until we can't, it's almost until we just fall out, or, you just hit a wall. But to be able to body scan is what I call that. And I think that's something, and here's a tool if you want to write down a tool or a tip. Learning to kind of just sit with awareness and scan from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. I try to do this every morning. So I have this ritual of making my bed, saying prayers over my home, my bed, because I want to get back to it. I really like sleep and rest.
I learned how to make my bed because of your show.
So I do the thing, and then I kind of sit on the edge of the bed, and sometimes I crack up laughing because I remind myself of my mom, and I'll share that story in a second. So I just kind of sit on the bed and scan from the top of my head all the way down to my feet, just to see, like, what's hurting today? What's happening with my body? What am I feeling? Do I feel well? Should I sit here another minute to kind of wake up and get myself together? If I jump up and move, is that going to be too fast for me right now? Like, what do I need in this moment? So yesterday I had to call out because I woke up and my head was pounding. I had a headache pounding, and it's like, okay, well, this isn't lifting. And I sat a little more and I said, okay, no, this is something different. So had I not been aware of that, I would have jumped up, got in the shower, done the thing, driven to work, and then got here like, I I don't feel well, right? Well, after when I should have been at home trying to take care of myself. So I love that you brought that point up. Awareness is key when it comes to grief because it will help us slow down. I heard you share like this time, a little bit before this period last year, you were in the throes of planning. So how often did you take a moment just to kind of check in with yourself? Do you recall?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I am a busy person.
Okay.
And my default is to do.
Yeah.
So I was perfectly happy. I mean, not about the circumstances.
Understand, yeah.
But I guess probably relieved to have that focus of task to perform.
Yeah.
So it took me quite a while to decompress and to come down.
Yeah.
And it's seasonal. I think the object of the caregiving shifts.
Yeah.
It shifts from the person who is now deceased to caregiving for yourself.
Yes.
So it comes in waves. It comes in. It's episodic.
Yeah.
And we just see from day to day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would even challenge those of you all that are listening and watching, as Dr. Sands shared that the point that you were just making about the caregiving piece shifting. I would even challenge you to see if you can figure out how can I manage a little of both, because just as you shared, it does shift, and a lot of energy goes into the person that you're caring for, and then when whatever change of events happens, if it is death, then you're like, well, what do I do now? But if you're able to adopt some tactics and tools to begin to care for yourself in tandem, then you are already ahead of it, and you can combat that hypervigilance that we have when it comes to planning, because I have that. We have that same trait. And so, because once it's all done, right, and the program happens, the funeral happens, then what?
Now what?
Yeah, then what? Then there's this wall that we hit. And you might need to hit it, right? And it's okay. And if that's a part of your process, that's fine. You may need to hit the wall so that you can kind of jolt yourself and say, oh, wait, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. And what will this look like from moment to moment? So you've got these symptoms that show up holistically as we navigate the grief process. And so grief can trigger a lot of emotions, right? I bought my emotion wheel. I know the type is so small, but I use this in session because it helps people kind of move out from just the basic emotion, right? And so you can't see, but I'll get a picture up for you all. For example, if you're sad, right? Sadness can transition to guilt, feeling abandoned, despair, depressed, lonely, bored, and then even further out, remorse, ashamed, feeling ignored, victimized, powerless, vulnerable, inferior, empty, isolated, apathetic, indifferent. All of those feelings start small with sad and then work themselves all the way out. And if we don't take the moment and time to learn how to scan and become aware, we'll never really get to what's underneath for us. Yes, we're sad, but there may be some other things that we need to deal with as a result of this person leaving, right? So a lot of different emotions, physical symptoms. Did either of you experience any physical symptoms? Mysterious pain, stomach issues is something that typically happens. Nervous stomach or sensitive, all of a sudden gaining a sensitivity to things and foods.
I would say stomach issues. Like I didn't really want to eat certain foods. My mother's favorite food, if everybody knows, is fried chicken.
And a
Coca-Cola.
That's right.
And so there was a time that I was not eating fried chicken. I could not eat chicken, smell it or anything, because it would just bring up all of these emotions. It was bringing up the emotions, and I would get sick eating the chicken. I just didn't eat it. I never really was into Coca-Colas like that, but I don't believe I've had a Coke in a very long time anyway. But you're right, yes, that physical part is there. I've always had back pains, but sometimes the back pains just come a little more, and headaches. Migraines are the main. When I have a migraine, there's something happening. The time is getting closer. There's a birthday. There's the holidays that are coming. It's my birthday. It's the kid's birthday. It's something happening where she would have been the person to do something for whatever that looks like. So yes, that is definitely a symptom that we have.
That you have, of course, tears, right? Persons experience difficulty sleeping. Anything like that, or maybe after the fact?
No sleep.
No sleep.
No sleep. No sleep. I think I'm getting to that point where I'm sleeping less now. If now that you're saying that, I'm like, you know what? It's down to like 5 hours now. It's not that straight sleep either.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
I don't do a lot of crying when people expect people to cry.
Okay.
I cry at movies and stuff like that, or I would cry. One of the things that happened is I would find myself, whenever I came to church, I would start crying.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't happen anyplace else.
Okay.
And it always surprised me.
Really?
That's where emotion would vent.
Okay.
Because it didn't vent anyplace else.
Okay. And did it happen before?
No.
No.
That's what's different.
Yeah.
This vulnerability, this, tears flowing at the drop of a hat did not happen before, and it never happened in church.
Okay.
And it happens in church.
It has happened. Yeah.
Actually, still quite frequently.
Okay.
I think that I probably sit on a lot of anxiety. So there's not a lot of outward demonstrative kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I could pinpoint was I wouldn't go into certain parts of the house.
Okay.
Because my mother was, I basically was my mother's caregiver for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And the last 4 months, I think from May, she was in a nursing home from May until she passed, which was in October, so a couple of months. So her room still felt very lived in, and still very fresh. Smells are close, and I was still, transporting stuff back and forth from the house to the nursing home. So I did not go upstairs very much for a really long time. Yeah. And then I moved into her room.
Oh, okay.
Which was weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you changed
her room?
Yeah.
I've decluttered it.
Okay.
But not really changed it. What I did was renovated the house.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but the room, room is pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same. I see how you use that energy. you got a really large project.
A year.
And poured yourself in.
It's been a year. It started in May.
Okay.
And maybe we'll be finished by by Christmas.
Okay. Well, all right. How has that process been?
If I were looking at myself,
yeah,
I'd say, Fred, you're a little weird. That's I think you're deflecting.
Yeah. But even a little of that is all right.
Yeah.
It is.
But I feel like the renovation's kind of a monument to my mom, because my mom bought that house in 1960.
Wow. Okay.
And that's the house I grew up in.
Okay.
And to be quite honest, I was not going to give it to gentrifiers. And in the condition that it was in.
Yeah.
So it's, honor her by creating a legacy
Yeah.
in this house.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's my story. Similar. We gotta swap some notes. But I live in the house I grew up in. I did a complete renovation when I came. My dad that raised me left me the house and signed over the deed in, I don't know, I think it was like September and November he passed away. And so he never got to see the finished product, right? And so now that I'm raising my daughter there, you know, I remind her like, hey, you got to keep this, right? This is legacy, blood, sweat, and tears. You know, we just can't just, you know, don't sell it is my words. Because that was my way. That was my physical way of moving through my grief. He came that Sunday. We were preparing for home inspection, and he came the Sunday before the week the home inspection was supposed to happen. And he was like, okay, I see y'all working away, talking to me and my nephew. And he was like, well, I'm sure you're going to do a good job. And I was like, yo, just wait. Wait till you see. And he was like, I'm sure you're going to do a good job. And I was like, hey, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You're going to see it. Just, you know. And he was like, I'm sure you're going to do a good job.
Yep.
And then we walked out together, and he was like, you know, I was talking to an old friend, and he said, you know, it used to be here today, gone tomorrow. But now it's here today, gone today. And I was like, wow, that's something to think about. And my dad went home and passed away that same day.
Wow.
Yep. And so I hold on to it. And so my home is, I mean, it really is the space that I try to honor that relationship and sacrifice, right? So, and I was a horrible griever. Right? So I'm trying to give you grace. I need to give myself grace. Horrible griever, because I found every project I could find, because I was searching for how do I get this never-ending love. I was not a caregiver to either parent that passed away because they were somewhere else when they passed, but weren't to the point of needing care. Well, maybe in a sense, I probably have to sit with that.
Expand the
Yeah,
definition.
I was going to say, because I was
Caregiving really
handling,
is.
you know, bills, this, that, and the third. So maybe not the physical idea of a caregiver. So in a different sense, but nevertheless, you know, I found all these projects. That's how I tried to navigate. But there came a time where I had to really sit down and start thinking about and planning, like, now how do you want to honor them beyond busying yourself?
Right.
Did you find that to be challenging? I have found, I'll confess, I found it to be very hard.
I did, because I knew to really honor my mom was to stay where I'm at. I wanted to leave. I wanted to get as far away from any and everything that had to do with her.
Yeah.
I didn't want anything to do with it, because I'm like, I just want to put it behind me at this point. It's my mom, of course, always going to be in my heart, but I just do not want to face this thing head on.
Yeah.
But I knew that in order to do what I am supposed to do here on this earth, my whole entire purpose here was to follow her footsteps. So it was like, okay, Angela, are you going to run from God and your mama? You going to run from both? Or are we going to, you know, put your big girl panties on and do what you're supposed to do? And I mean, you know, through the love of the church and conversations I've had with everybody, or had with everyone, I'm here, you know, honoring her. Like, through my job, I feel where I honor her the most. If it wasn't for her, I would not be doing half of the things, or I would not have that embedded in my life, in my heart, if I was not, if she was not doing the things within the church as well. So yes, I did find that hard.
You did find it hard. Yeah.
I found it
But you
extremely.
found your own way.
I have found my own way, and I think that was the scary part. That was the scary part, because I felt like I had to do it her way. If I didn't do it her way, it was the wrong way. But you know, again, conversations with everyone, like, Angela, your purpose is your purpose, your life is your life, your walk is your walk.
Yeah.
Got it. So it's easier now.
Dr. Morgan, I wanted to comment about you. I think you were asking about physical symptoms. I think mine manifested actually in kind of lethargy and fatigue.
Okay.
I had been working remotely since the pandemic.
Okay.
In various jobs. This last job, I was working remotely for a nonprofit in Florida.
Oh, okay.
When my mom died. And they decided they wanted everybody to come in, to come back. And I had lived in Florida for a really long time before I came back here to care for my mother.
Okay.
So it wasn't a foreign community, it wasn't a foreign environment, but I just couldn't do it. My brain was mush. I could do tasks, but I couldn't make decisions.
Okay. Yes.
And I literally had to resign from the job. It's just like, I cannot uproot my life, make the decision to try to run two households, whatever kind of financial maneuvering you need to do to make all of that. I just couldn't do it.
Couldn't do that.
And I just had to say, I can't.
Yeah.
Both to them and to myself.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the mental symptoms of grief. Difficulty making decisions, feeling a sense of confusion, or the just inability to do. Yeah.
And being overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And so, for you all that are sharing in this space and time with us, nothing's wrong with you. It's grief, right? If you have found yourself in this, you're okay.
You're okay.
You're okay. You're not okay, and it's okay to not be okay, but you're not a negative something else. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Nothing needs to be fixed. We don't need the oil and deliverance. You are navigating through, and maybe for some other areas of my life, I'm just going to talk about me. You look at you, I look at me. Maybe for some other areas of my life that might be applicable. But when it comes to grief, this is a space that is weird. I think you said earlier, somebody said it's a weird space. Nothing feels normal.
Nothing is normal.
And you just allow yourself to sit. Allow yourself just to sit through it. It's I think every other word should be grace.
Grace. That's right.
You're right.
I want it tattooed on my forehead. Just grace.
Please, grace.
Grace. I love how you honored yourself and said, I can't force myself in this position to try to do this job. Right? And I'm sure that came with a cost. A big one.
And I also kind of felt like this particular job was part of my ministry, and it was very difficult to withdraw from. And I also felt my boss called me and offered me this job.
Really?
And I felt like I had let her down.
Okay.
So it was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Guilt.
Right. And then, so now we get into, and that's not our conversation tonight, but see, now you're getting into complicated grief, because now here is another high level situation or issue in your life that you have to disconnect from. You were talking about attachments earlier that you were attached and connected to, that you have to make this difficult decision to release. And there's grief around that. And so it's not just a person passing away. Then we start thinking about the other things connected to that. And if another incident of death or loss, significant death and loss happen, then that then kind of bumps us up to another category, which extends or prolongs the actual process of grief. And I share with people all the time that grief is a diagnosis that you'll never get rid of. There is no cure. Once it happens, it's with you for the rest of your life. It may come in waves and different iterations. In some seasons, you'll be okay. My mom that raised me passed in 96, and then my dad passed in 2006. And some days it feels like I just got the call. And so here we are, removed almost 30 years, almost 20 years, right? Some days it just feels like the phone just rang. Some seasons I don't even think about it. Now, I'm not a person that goes to grave sites, and I'm just not. But if that's your thing, do what you need to do. And anything else, you read in between the lines, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But be aware, right? And notice when too much is too much, okay? All right. That's an inside joke. But if you follow along, you'll catch it. You'll catch it. So you got to figure out like what's going to work for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Got to figure out, because it's just once grief happens, you can never unsee it, never unlive it. It's with you. It's with you. So that sense of self-care, right? That really is the only thing, like accepting the process, making space, or navigating, right? So what kind of plan can you put into place to help give your life a sense of purpose and direction now, to hold this big old basket of love, this big old heart of love that we have as a result of the persons and people and things that we've now lost, right? How do we handle that? So that kind of puts our topic together. So navigating never-ending love. So when you hear that never-ending love, what comes up for you? Navigating never-ending love.
Let's see, never-ending love. So my mother is always going to be my mother, and nobody can replace her.
Yeah.
Nobody can replace her. I don't care how many aunties and other mamas I've gained in the past 4 years. It's my mom is my mom. And me doing the work that I do, just I sometimes I feel closer to her now. So it's this never ending thing. And sometimes now I feel as if I talk to, like every now and then I'll call my kids and we'll have conversations about her, just to keep her alive within the household. I've gotten great with her. Her things aren't in my house anymore. I don't go to the grave site, because I remember last year I was I'm at the grave site. I'm at the grave. Okay. I haven't been in a while now. But that doesn't take away the fact that I'm always going to love my mom. So it's just this that's what it means for me. Like just keeping her memory alive for me is what I see.
Well, I'm giving myself grace around the grave, because the cemetery is not that far from our house. And I actually feel guilty every time I drive by it and don't stop. But I'm giving myself grace because it's just something that I'm not able to do. But the never-ending love part, as a Christian, I believe that life is eternal. And so it may change form from the physical to the not. And sometimes love isn't everything you thought it was. I hear these kind of Huxtable-like story, mother-daughter stories. That was not my relationship with my mother. But what has happened is that every adage that people have ever said to me about your mother, you only have one mother, everything people tell you about your mother, I have come to realize that all of it is true. So that's my never-ending love
I love
spiel.
that. I love that. I have a vivid memory of my dad. My dad. My mom passed first. They were separated, but together. You know, that old school love. And oh my gosh, he was just devastated when she died. He would go to the cemetery every Sunday. And he had a process. He'd go buy his dollar store flowers on Thursday. He'd put them in the car. He'd be ready to go. And then Sunday, you could find him there for hours.
Oh, wow.
And he'd just sit there, thinking, talking, doing every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. If that's what you need, right? If that's what you need. He had gotten remarried,
Oh my.
all the things, and still did this every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, how does your wife feel about this? He was like, well, she knew. She knew coming in. She knew how I felt about her. I was like,
Okay.
okay. I wasn't a therapist
Bless your
then,
heart.
but I imagined the conversation I could have had. I was like, okay, that's all right. But I knew then that wasn't going to be my thing. But I had to figure out, like, this navigation piece. I had to figure out how else I could best use this energy in the world,
Yeah.
other than 3 and 4 hours at the cemetery every week.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that. And so that I'm raising a child, right? I said yes to an amazing journey in raising this child, and instilling in her what was instilled in me. And so I have said yes to ministry, and it is now my full-time job, on top of just, when I am able to just serve. And so that's how I have chosen to kind of live through. But I've also chosen to learn better how to take care of myself. And so this is back to, so yes, I'm coming back. And if you've ever watched any of my episodes, yes, we're going to talk about self-care. So, so I've had to learn how to come back to self. I had to come back. We're actually journeying through an authentic life through the church right now, a weekly Bible, well, not a Bible study, but a weekly study, using Dr. Tamar Bryan's book, The Homecoming, because I just feel like it's essential for people to really realize and reconnect with their authentic selves. So that's what my journey has looked like. Those 3 entities: coming back to self, raising a daughter, and then saying yes to ministry. And so what would yours, so I'm asking you as you're watching with us, what does your self-care, how do you begin to kind of move this energy, right? And even if it is inclusive of doing some of the ritualistic things that we've shared, that's okay. But I am challenging you now. How do you insert self? How do you build self back up? How do you love self the way that you have cared and loved for someone so much? I honor you both because you both have so unique journeys, sacrifices of just this love, regardless of the situation. You inserted self to do that. And so self-care, all right? Self-care. So if you had one tip, even where you are in your journey, just one, and then we're going to let Dr. Sands share a little bit about what's coming up for 2025 around this topic. What would you tell people around taking care of yourself?
For me, in this stage of my life, journaling is key for me. I have found a process now where I sit with self. Leave me alone, phone off. Okay. No children, leave me alone. But I sit with self, and then I pray. I pray. God, and I start asking him questions. I ask the Holy Spirit questions. What is it that you want from me? What is it that I need to do? What areas in my life do I need to change? So it's no longer me evaluating myself. I am now asking the Holy Spirit, how, like, what is it that I need to change? And as I'm sitting there and I'm meditating, I am journaling what I'm hearing, and how he's speaking to me. So therefore, it's not, it's, you know, you got to learn how to listen to the voice of God. So let's start there. But it's literally whatever it is that I hear, I am writing this down, and I'm following what it's saying, because for me, that's me following the Holy Spirit. That's what God is telling me to do, and that's my self-care now. I have to follow the Spirit. Journaling, just start with journaling.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. One tip or tips?
It's the 1.5.
Okay.
I want to piggyback off of Sister Angela's thing. I think your spiritual practice is paramount. Do not abandon it.
Yeah.
And it may not look like, you know, a sanctified saint. Whatever just acknowledge God and let God be with you, even if you can't be with God.
Yes.
That's good.
And then just grace. Just grace.
Yeah. Grace.
Back to that word again.
Because it's an important word.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an important word. Psalm, let me make sure, because I want to say, Lord, she don't know what she talking about.
Yes, they will call you out
Yes,
in the
will.
chat.
In the chat.
Psalm 34:18. I would make sure I had the right verse or stanza. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. That's one of my go-to.
Yes.
Because shavah is the Hebrew word for brokenhearted. And it literally means break, to break or shatter. Or destruction at God's hands or by human hands or action. And that's what we feel when grief knocks on our door.
Yes.
A lot of times it's God first, like you did this.
You did it.
Or human action. You died, right? We are angry at somebody. We're upset at someone, God, and then likely a human, because of the destruction and devastation we feel by being shattered by our love, our life, our routine, our fill in the blank, right? Process, how we decided that we were going to move and live. Our identity is connected to this person, this thing, and someone has come along like this glass table and shattered it. And once you shatter like this glass table, you are not able to put that thing back together like it was in that whole state ever again, which is why once you get this grief diagnosis, it never goes away. There's always just a small fragment or a large fragment, depending on where you are in your process, that's missing. So we've got to learn how to better care for ourselves. Sorry, Terrence. We've got to learn how to better care for ourselves, because it's inevitable. It's one of those changes in this life that's inevitable.
Dr. Morgan.
Yeah.
When we talk about taking care of ourselves, and we've talked about grace, I just want folks to know that it's okay to feel relief. Caregiving can be consuming.
Yes.
And it can be overwhelming. And it can pull you under.
Yes.
And sometime before you get to grief, you get to relief.
Yes.
Amen.
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 Somebody's been waiting all episode to hear that word right there.
Yeah.
It's okay to be relieved. That's one of those behaviors when we're impacted by grief that shows up. And it's okay for you not to be guilty about how you feel, because that's a journey. So now, why don't you go ahead and share what the Lord has placed on your heart and work to do.
Well, the church has acknowledged the need
Yeah.
for support for people who are going through the caregiving season.
Absolutely.
And it has been on the heart of the church for some time. I'm aware of it for at least 6 years.
Okay.
And now that your lovely self is here, it has come under your umbrella and the auspices of your office. And the church will be initiating a caregivers ministry at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So we want you to look out for the announcements. Are you ready to share the name or not yet?
It's SOUL. The acronym is SOUL, S-O-L, is Spirit of Love Caregiving Ministry.
Yes. So please be on the lookout during the month of November. We're going to have an interest meeting so that persons that want to connect will be able to get that information, connect with Dr. Sands, and be able to understand what's going to happen, how it will be set up, and all the things connected to soul. So be on the lookout for that information coming out within the next few weeks.
We have an email address.
All right.
And it's caregivers@alfredstreet.org.
Awesome. Caregivers with an S.
With an S.
At alfredstreet.org. So if you already know that this is where you need to be, go ahead. You can start emailing. Dr. Sands is waiting for your emails. You'll be a part of that initial email list so that she can begin building that information and sharing what's going to come up as far as future events. But we know that this is definitely something that's been requested. It has been requested under my tenure, but as you've shared, it is something that has been on the horizon for a while. And so I am just excited that her answer was yes. For her to be able to lead in this way. I know that there are some exciting programming, networking opportunities, and events that she will have, and opportunities to learn more as you navigate this season. And I'm sure if I'm not the guest, we'll have somebody there talking about self-care. So we will make sure that is a part of this discussion. So listen, we know that this was a heavy episode. We've got a number of, by the time this airs, Alfred Street would have had a number of episodes and offerings around grief, because we realize how difficult it is. For some, this is their first holiday. For others, this is another holiday. And so there is no hierarchy when it comes to that. They get difficult. They get challenging. We look for ways to honor ourselves and honor those that we love. So I encourage you. We'll have actually the website is already updated with caregiving information around the holidays now. So you can visit our website and check out our monthly article. But if you need any additional support, we'll have Grief Share starting in the spring, and so that you'll be able to connect with. We'll have our new Caregivers Ministry that will be starting in January. And just a number of things that will be able to help aid and support you as you move through this season. I want to again thank Sister Angela, and I want to thank Dr. Sands so much for being here, for sharing parts of their own journey and their own story as caregivers, and moving in a space where we're trying to figure out what to do with all of this love that we have. And so I want to thank you for tuning in, and we ask that you would like and do all the things that the kids tell us to do, right? Like, click,
Share.
like, share, all the things. Because we know that this episode is one, along with all the things that we've been able to come to you with. But this is something you definitely want to share with those that are caregivers or were caregivers that are in your life. This does not replace therapy. This is informational and a way to just touch and connect with someone going through with something that you have gone through. So I encourage you to just continue to do the best that you can. Give yourself grace, right? And if you feel like you're in a place where you definitely just need some additional support, you can always contact us at pastoral counseling at alfredstreet.org. Any final comments, questions, concerns, and complaints? I'll take them all.
Just that we are defining caregiving broadly.
Okay.
So we're not just talking about a spouse or a parent. People provide care in a variety of ways. Yeah. And so please include yourself when you think of who's captured by the term caregiving.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Sands has been dropping all kind of good nuggets in this session tonight. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So don't discount your service, your work, your love towards whatever it is that you're making space to take care of. That would qualify you. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Anything, Miss Angela?
No.
No? All right. We'll put some resources up on the screen, but as always, if you are feeling that you're at a place where you need support around suicidal thoughts, or even thinking that perhaps this is, you just can't anymore, I definitely want to just engage you in dialing 988 for support and care. Mental health resources can be found at 211. So you can either call that number or type that number, 211.org, as a resource for additional information. And again, pastoral counseling at alfredstreet.org. Before we go, I would just like to lift up this word of prayer. And I'm actually going to take this right from Cole Arthur Riley's book, Black Liturgies. We are loving this book because she has a language that speaks so eloquently, but real, down to earth, right to God's ear. And so I want to share this with you as we close out on tonight. God of complicated grief, I don't know how to feel. I only know what I am supposed to feel, which is daunting, suffocating. Stay close as I struggle to grasp my own grief. Help me to make peace with a kind of mourning that is nuanced and distant. Distinct. Keep me from idealizing or demonizing the relationship in death. And help me be present to the complexities of a person who did or did not love me well.
Yes, Jesus.
Protect me from guilt as I become honest about how I feel. When it's sorrow, let it be a sorrow that is free, knowing that I was able to love an imperfect human. When it's relief, let it be a relief that is unashamed of itself, knowing that I deserved better than what this person was able to give to me. And if I feel nothing at all, may it be a nothingness that is aware of all the emotions already spent. May the nothingness not be numbness, but a mercy. The mercy of peace in a season of profound loss. I don't know what I'll feel tomorrow or how sorrow will settle in the years to come, but help me make space for grief's many faces. I can feel more than one thing. May it be so. Thank you for joining us, and until the next time, may God be with you. May you love on you, take care of you, and move forward to the best of your ability.